Consciousness is often described as expansion, awakening, or higher awareness. It is associated with insight, freedom, and personal growth. But there is a question that is asked far too rarely: what happens when consciousness is separated from responsibility? In many contemporary narratives, consciousness is treated as a private experience, something that happens inside an individual, detached from social consequence. This separation is not accidental. It is comfortable. If consciousness is purely internal, it does not have to respond to inequality, power, or ethical tension. It does not have to ask how insight translates into action. Consciousness that does not engage with responsibility risks becoming an illusion of depth without consequence, an illusion of awareness without accountability. True consciousness does not float above reality. It moves within it. It recognizes that insight changes how we relate, not only to ourselves, but to others. And that awareness has implications beyond personal well-being. Responsibility does not mean moral superiority. It does not mean having the right answers. It means being willing to consider how our perspectives affect the world we participate in. Every worldview carries consequences. Every belief influences behavior. And every inner narrative shapes outer action. Ignoring this does not make consciousness purer. It makes it incomplete. One of the most subtle distortions of modern spirituality is the idea that responsibility limits freedom. That ethical reflection restricts personal expression. In reality, the opposite is true. Responsibility grounds consciousness. It gives it direction, and it prevents awareness from collapsing into abstraction. Without responsibility, consciousness becomes self-referential, concerned primarily with how one feels rather than how one relates. This does not mean abandoning inner work. It means extending it. Inner clarity that does not translate into relational clarity remains unfinished. At Spirit Online, we approach consciousness as a relational process, not a destination, but an ongoing negotiation between insight and impact. We ask how awareness shows up in dialogue, how spirituality influences social attitudes, and how inner perspectives shape collective realities. This is not about politicizing spirituality. It is about contextualizing it. Every spiritual path exists within a world shaped by history, power, and complexity. Pretending otherwise does not protect spirituality. It isolates it. Consciousness that avoids responsibility often presents itself as neutral. But neutrality, in complex systems, is rarely neutral. It often aligns unconsciously with existing structures, and it allows injustice to continue unexamined. Responsibility does not require certainty. It requires attention. Attention to how our words land. Attention to whose voices are amplified. Attention to the consequences of silence. Consciousness deepens when it includes this level of awareness, not as a burden, but as a dimension. The purpose of conscious inquiry is not to escape the world, but to meet it with greater clarity and honesty. This channel exists to explore that meeting point, where inner development does not end in self-reference, but opens into responsibility, dialogue, and ethical presence. Because consciousness that cannot respond is not awakened, it is unfinished. If you value depth, clarity, and conscious perspective, you're welcome to subscribe to this channel. More articles and essays are available at spiritonline.de. Thank you for being here.